everyone are welcome to turn on your video, and then we can see you. And this is a round table, and in the sense that everyone is expert, and we welcome all your contribution. So with that, and I'd like to just kick off the conversation and welcome everyone. And my name is Xiaoqun Jiang, and the president and founder of FinTech for Good and also AI 2030. So this is a conversation that we'd like to just kick off as a AI 2030 series. And as you can probably everyone who are here already just heard so much about ChatGPT, and AI these days is becoming such a hot topic. And of course, that's it's not all the stories are positive. There are also a rich information around AI, and for this series that we are bringing a list of great leaders in this space having conversation. The first one is around the scaling up AI for enterprise, and we have a number of future conversations on other topics around AI. And the reason why we select this as the kickoff, and if you're just looking at emerging technology adoption in general, enterprise play a very important role. Without enterprises adoption, and a technology may just really not able to achieve its scale, and may not also bring the right impact to the society. So with that, we have a very strong panel here, and I'd like to just invite them to introduce themselves. And as I shared from the beginning, this is a roundtable. Everyone is an expert, and we want it to be interactive.
I'm thrilled to join you here today for this exciting discussion. My name is Anastasia Tracy Reisis, and I'm the founder and CEO of Aquilia Group, LLC. It's a consulting firm where we assist organizations in adapting, innovating, disrupting, and transforming in this ever-evolving digital and interconnected world. My professional journey primarily revolves around banking and fintech, where I spent decades focused on governance, risk, and compliance. During that time, helping organizations navigate through transforming business models in the face of digital disruption was always my focus. In my view, in today's dynamic business landscape, adaptability is critical for organizations. Whether it's compliance or any other business operations, embracing emerging technologies and innovations such as AI-driven disruptions is critical to staying competitive and maybe even relevant. AI has the potential to revolutionize the way we do business by enabling organizations to streamline operations, improve efficiency, optimize customer interactions, deliver personalized experience, and so much more. I'm genuinely looking forward to today's discussion, engaging with you all, and above all, learn. And I'm a lifelong learner, and gaining valuable insight is very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And Albert?
Amazing. Nice to meet everyone, and good morning. Is where I'm at today. My name is Albert. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of VectorShift. We're a startup, but we're currently actually in the Y Combinator summer batch. What we are building is we're building a platform that accelerates the deployment of large language models for enterprises. So we actually work with large enterprises, internal development teams, and then the internal development teams use our platform to build internal tools. Or we have another motion where we actually use our platform to deploy end-to-end solutions for our customers. So for example, we work with a few large enterprises for use cases such as creating an internal engine to respond to RFPs. Another use case is creating an engine that queries an entire document base within an organization and helps frontline sales reps, understand how to prep and present themselves on calls. My background is I was a former consultant at McKinsey, where I helped large enterprises digitally transform. And yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be among some esteemed people on the panel. So my name is Michael Borelli, co-founder of AI and Partners, which is a professional services firm for companies subject to the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. We provide a plethora of services, including advisory, scoping, and compliance software. We've actually built the world's first product called the European AI Scanner, which effectively identifies and risk classifies any AI system, which has been validated by the OECD. So major milestone, and the team have been absolutely fantastic and working super hard. Like my contemporaries on the panel, I stem from consultancy background and financial services, mainly in regulatory compliance, so helping companies with regulatory change management programs and helping them through advice on governance matters and this type of thing. I also had a brief stint setting up an operations division at a crypto exchange, so a lot of different interests, but ultimately a lifelong learner, and as Tracy alluded to, important to be adaptable. So pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ravi.
Yes, hi everyone. Delighted to be here. It's a great panel to be part of. So I'm Ravi Sarkar. I'm the enterprise CTO in the capital markets and fintech segment in Microsoft. And as part of my role, I focus on all of technology strategy and execution of the tech platform, the cloud platform that we have for the capital markets and fintech segment. And I drive the innovation agenda across the industry. That's my role. Have been in the industry for almost 20 years. Was lucky to be part of some of the tier one banking and fintech systems, building out their capabilities at the foundational level. And here we are with some of the latest and greatest technologies that we are right now focusing, AI being one of them. Blockchain was slightly new, but now it's much more advanced, I would say. So combining all those converged technologies to enable business value is my focus.
Thank you. And as you can see, that we do have a very strong group of experts who can just share on some of the very interesting things. And my first question is really around the AI trend and also the excitement in the market, and maybe this time just from Ravi first. That's in your view, what is the most exciting thing around AI happening, and how does that impact your business and also your clients now?
Yeah, no, and that's a very relevant question at this point. I would say some of the trends that we are seeing are, at a foundational level, all the capabilities that the large language models are able to provide. People are trying to replicate the cognitive capabilities of human being. So being able to see like human, being able to talk like human, being able to process the large information like human, but at scale. So that's the foundational level of use case that everyone is trying to kind of wrap their arms around. That's the number one trend which we are seeing. The other aspect of it is, can we do things that we have not been able to do before with the new capabilities, new large language models, and the AI capabilities sitting on top of cloud. So these are some of the key trends that we are seeing. And if you overlay that on top of these capabilities, the business use cases, people are being very creative. They are thinking of, how do we create, let's say, the test data, leveraging some of the AI models at scale, and accelerate the development of some of the solutions and the products much faster. So some of the things that used to take probably a couple of years, now we can accelerate those product development in months or maybe weeks. So these are some of the high-level trends that we are seeing, leveraging the AI capabilities, and also at a technical level, people are trying to identify which large language model will be the best solution for them. So running the large language models at scale with the high throughput and low latency, those are some of the experimentations that are ongoing at a technical platform level. So I will highlight these as some of the trends. Ziachong.
Thank you. Yeah, now that's definitely, I think, some of the things we have seen a lot from our enterprise, and then they have all those questions that need to be answered. And then go back to, Michael, that's why did you start this AI partnership? And so what do you try to achieve, and what have you seen in markets, around AI?
Well, the idea, to be fair, the credit has to go to my business partner, Sean. Sean was an ex-tech accountant from KPMG, and saw the proposal for the EU AI Act when we started work together in 2021, and basically saw that it was like a wave forming in the sea. You see, wow, this can be something similar to GDPR when it was initially adopted. We spoke about it at length and thought it was worth, basically wrapping a business model around and doing a lot of research. And we saw that companies went through a lot of difficulties with GDPR, everything from implementation exercises to training to embedding different types of software, the whole package, as some of my panelists probably have extensive experience in doing. So we wanted to basically take that challenge, that problem away from companies and give them practical solutions which they could adopt from day one. What we're seeing in the market now is we're seeing a lot of confusion, similar to the origins of GDPR. And forgive me if I'm repeating myself. Companies just need that awareness and education piece. So I think they term it AI literacy. I think we're seeing a lot of people really undertaking training programs, either proactively or sponsored by organizations. They're looking to learn more about it. They want to adopt it because now that the cat's out the bag, in essence, when your regulation comes, if you don't have these protocols and safeguards in place, you will be caught off guard. And I think given the fact that AI is ubiquitous now, it's really, really pressing. And the companies we're speaking to, some of the world's largest professional services firms, law firms, accountancies, system integrators, they see how fundamental this is going to be. Because if you think of the GDP, for example, that GDPR produced, I think there's a good chance, but by no means certain, that the EU AI Act can increase that.
Yeah, very interesting. As you can see that, to have AI to move forward, you need the infrastructure side, like what Microsoft can provide, and then to the infrastructure, the tools to build. You also need like what Michael can just provide, as there's a regulatory environment and new laws will be introduced, and how to navigate to just make your innovation responsible and compliant and all that. I think that itself is also very important. Now go to Albert, and so for you, that's why do you choose the angle that's enter into the space with building out the modulars, and then and also choose your first type of product that you're about to launch?
Absolutely. I think the way we have architectured our product as almost an infrastructure layer, sitting on top of the large language models to accelerate deployment, is actually, we base it on a lot of the trends that we're talking about today, which is not many people actually know which of these model providers will be a winner, in quotes, right? As far as, kind of what we think, we don't actually think there will be actually a clear winner in the long term between the model providers. I think there will be some asymptotic behavior of how good the models will get, and also there could be different model providers that are better for different use cases. So we don't think it's going to be a winner-take-all market, for any of these model providers. And as a result, I think there is going to be a significant need, for a platform, for end users and organizations to make sense of which model to use, and also how to actually deploy these models within their organizations, connecting to their data sources, fitting in the data in the right way, so that models can understand, making feedback loops so that the models get better and better within the organization. And this is, what I saw in McKinsey. I actually did kind of 2 generative AI deployments, my kind of last 2 kind of consulting engagements at McKinsey for large enterprises. And large organizations have a lot of data. They have a lot of trouble, feeding it and getting it all formatted correctly, so to speak, into the models. And it takes a lot of time, without a platform that really facilitates that. So that's how we architecture the problem, our product, and kind of the theory behind our product as well.
Thank you, Albert. And now come to Tracy. That you have been a leader in some of the largest enterprise in the world, and you have seen a lot of emerging technology adoption in those enterprise, and anything new for AI. And if say I'm a large enterprise and I want to just really ride this wave and also solve some of the core challenge that I'm facing, and then how can I start? And also, what question even should I ask?
Sure. So AI has made significant strides over the past year, and generative AI in particular has absolutely catalyzed the AI revolution, so to speak. And it has unveiled remarkable possibilities for businesses of all industries, from e-commerce to healthcare to education, entertainment. But from the banking industry, because that's my area of specialization, it's introduced a lot of opportunities to personalize services and products, to create new opportunities, manage risk and fraud, enable transparency and compliance. We've talked about GDPR, and automate operations and reduce costs. And several of the banks have already started taking advantage of that. For example, you have Morgan Stanley that's at the forefront of this. They actually helped develop an AI-based engine called Next Best Action, which facilitates delivery of tailored messages to the clients and prospects. Of course, there's a financial advisor in the background that's feeding this engine, but this is, the trend. You have Deutsche Bank, which has teamed up with NVIDIA to develop an application for better risk management. So there's a lot of opportunities. Now, the kind of questions to ask, well, first of all, you have to focus on your use case. What is the use case that you're trying to solve for? Because you can't just go in and say, I want an AI ML engine. That's just too broad. You have to be very specific, and you have to have a problem statement that you want to solve for. Once you have that, you have to have a framework of how you're going to use that. And I would suggest highly you have your own internal framework, because if you don't regulate yourself, the regulators are going to come in and regulate you. So have the best practices in place right off the bat. And then the third thing is education. Focus on educating your stakeholders on what their expectations should be for AI/ML more broadly. So those are the kind of areas that you need to focus on.
Perfect.
To the panelists and yourself, I wanted to learn more about your thoughts around building a data strategy for your organization that will allow you to take advantage or harness LLMs and generative AI. Kind of get their thoughts. I heard one of the speakers talking about how he did it for enterprise customers, and kind of wanted to get his thoughts on how do we harness our existing data or build a data strategy so that we can empower our organizations to harness LLMs.
Yeah, who want to take that question?
I can have a go at it if you want. Although I know it's probably not directed at me, but I'll give it a go. So I think in terms of data strategy, this is where data is the data is the oil and AI is the combustion engine, right? So how it's handled, how the treatment of data is very important. So any strategy for implementation or otherwise needs to handle the governance aspect. So where data is stored, how it's treated, who has access to it, these types of things. With respect to the E-Ray Act, it does feed into the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. So I think any AI deployment strategy also needs to consider in parallel the data strategy and make sure that things such as what data is it being trained on, who has access to it, is made transparent and clear. So if you get any queries from internal auditors or regulators, you can make sure that this information can be explained in clear and plain English. I think with these type of things, less is more. So I think, especially when you're dealing with complex projects, I think the simpler we can make it is better. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe anyone else have additional thoughts?
There you go. All right. So anyway, so just in summary, basically, a real quick summary of my background. I've been in the data analytics space for about almost 30 years, actually, unbelievably. And one just interesting factoid was that I was at Cornell taking an AI class in 1992, and I took a snapshot of the materials from that class where it said that only time will tell how important neural networks will be in the future. Because as we all know, I think, and in that class, they taught us neural networks over 30 years ago, the same freaking neural networks that we're using today. So basically, I don't think it's the analytics have changed. And I'll get to the data question in a second too. So the analytics haven't really changed. It's the data basically that, foundationally has been much more available in the last, few years at scale. And as you all probably know, ChatGPT has ingested essentially pretty much all the data, public data on the internet up to 2021. Now, I think the problem, though, is twofold. One of them is that you as a company, you at scale cannot do what ChatGPT has done, right? It's simply not financially feasible. So I think you need to be more pragmatic about narrowing a problem space to starting out essentially with data sets that I would say are of reasonable quality. Don't start out, if possible, with the open internet. I mean, that's just a recipe for legal problems, as I think the previous speaker was saying. And then use that essentially as a test case for moving on towards and learning, frankly, what you can achieve in terms of data accuracy as also value from a output perspective. So the data as the input has to be, I would say, initially, don't get too excited. Use data basically that is unstructured, but that you have at least reasonable confidence in the accuracy of. And then from a modeling perspective, frankly, I would give you the same advice. There are dozens of models out there, right, with exotic names. But start out with ones that you feel you have confidence in, and that ideally in the academic setting, on the technology firm setting, at least have proven to be somewhat reliable. Use those, and then the field's evolving at lightning speed. By next year, I think we'll be in a slightly different place. But I think today that's where we are.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah, if I may add something on top of what Sandeep said, I think one key aspect to begin with is identifying what's your business objective, and whether you want to be in the business of building large language models that are verticalized for a particular business segment, or you want to leverage what's already built from the large language model standpoint and build something on top of it. So aligning the business objective is probably the first step, and aligning the data that you want to provide in order to make the AI models work. That's probably one of the key first steps I would suggest, in addition to what Sandeep mentioned. And then, of course, all the hyper-converged data sets that are useful for a particular business objective and business use case will be much easier to kind of achieve, and then you select the right LLM platform, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's a great question.
Let me,
yeah, please.
Let me add to that. So this question on data is actually probably one of the most relevant questions that you could ask in this environment, especially as we are becoming ever more digital and ever more interconnected. There's a lot of data out there, and there's an old adage, garbage in, garbage out. So how do you sort through the garbage that's out there? How do you sort through all the noise? That's a very critically important question, especially when you're training the AI models. They're going to be trained on information that's potentially not relevant. So having a data strategy where you're sorting through that noise is critically important. The other obstacle that you have is things like GDPR and PSD2, where the data residency is restricted. So you have to be very, very focused on the data that you are putting into your AI models.
Yeah, and just also a few reflection from me on this, and you know, in general, when you just look at your data strategy, how an organization build a data strategy, you come from asking question, where's my data? What data do I have? Where do those data come from, and where do I host all the data? Is that in one place, and or is it in multiple places, and can it be used, or are they useful or not, right? So that is the first place that's to foundation of a data strategy. And with AI, and you will ask a lot more question around data. Before you only need to know where they are and all that. But now that's because of AI, in the future when you are using AI to building your models, and then the data source, and whether you have the critical information, and whether those data really comply, and before you just apply that for the training and all that. So you will ask a lot of the question even before you have the second phase of data strategy. That is around transformation, where that's after you know where your data, what data you have and where do you store them. Then a lot traditional data strategy include how to leverage data to transform your business. And there that a lot of time is looking at your, again, go back to everyone talking about what business problems, especially internal operation and all that, how to leverage your data to transform the performance and everything else. And there that, again, now with AI, that not only that you can offer to the customer side, but now that looking at how to transform your business and then to improve efficiency and address existing operational challenge, you have a much better tool there, and where that's leverage data, leveraging AI to just improve, enhance your performance and transform your business in that way. The third part is around traditional data strategy include an innovation piece, like how to leverage data to innovate, to design new offers, to enhance customer relationship or customer experience, and all that. Now, and again, everyone are talking about where that's AI with the large language model, where that's you can design or develop a new product with historically much more time, and now with the very short time that you can launch a new product, a new offer, and which at a much lower cost and with much better customer experience. So there, how to use data to AI, leveraging data to innovate, and then that will become another very important piece. So there, go back to the question that the harness part is really that looking at your existing data strategy at different phase, and then see what AI can just enhance that part, but also can potentially have new angle. You have to look into that component in a different way and asking new additional questions around that.
And so, we do have a question from Doug from the audience. He has his hand up.
Perfect. Yeah, Doug.
Yes, really enjoying this talk, and just enjoying the various perspectives. One thing I just wanted to highlight is I really think a great and I put it in the chat is how to get ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Just really excited about where Microsoft's going in 365 Copilot, but in terms of managing your data, one thing in that video that I thought was extremely important was talking, like they talked about GDPR policies, right? And looking for how, like the EU AI policies. I'm going to be very excited to see how Microsoft looks at that, and other government policies, you know, because managing policies and government policies is so critical. And so like what Michael was talking about as well, you know, there's this old saying that move fast, break things, but I then add or pay lots of fines or go to jail, right? And so, you know, the question is, you know, there's these large language models. You know, do you use your do-it-yourself, you know, internal creations? Do you use companies like Microsoft or Google? I'll put in the chat. Google, there was a really good presentation. It's focused on AI and healthcare, but it was Google's cloud perspective. And Martha, or Sophia Marta from Google in Portugal, was talking about Google's strategy around the consumer and the enterprise space. And so, you know, trying to understand policy and the enterprise space is absolutely critical. It would be my comment in this space. And like with the EU AI Act being one of the first regulatory challenges companies are going to have to face, and again, move fast, break things, pay lots of fines. You're going to need to have companies like AI and partners to really understand that you're not moving too fast and having to pay lots of fines, just like GDPR. So that would be my comment for that.
Move on to the second round of question that I have for the panel, and probably this time that's maybe just follow what Doug's question. Go to Michael, and now can you just help us to dive deep into the EU AI Act and also potentially more broader EU, because it's, you know, in European Union, this is not the only directive or legislation on AI, and maybe you can help us to just navigate the landscape a little bit. Yeah.
I'll do my best, and I think the first thing to start with was say that it's still currently going through the legislative process. So the trilogue discussions are underway, but all signs indicate that they're going well. Once they conclude, if by the end of the year, then there'll be a 2-year transition period for companies to implement the Act. So what is the Act? Forgive the background noise if there is any, of course. The Act is a horizontal risk-based approach to AI systems, which governs the use, deployment, development, importing, and distribution of AI systems. They principally affect high-risk systems, so those for like social scoring, or biometric systems where you interact with sensitive data. So as we touched on earlier, the data touch point there is critical, especially where you're dealing with personal data under the GDPR. To your point of other European regulations, well, it does intersect with others. Some people refer to AI as a product, so you've got product safety. Others think it's a process, so you've got the Digital Markets Act. So the definition of AI is probably the most interesting thing because everyone has a different interpretation of it. So everyone from the OECD to the European Commission to US Congress. So the lack of harmonization, as people on the panel probably know, is always at the root of these problems. And in terms of its significance around the world, if I understand you correctly, other jurisdictions are looking to the EU as the gold-plated standard. So I know the US government are considering this. Obviously, the UK are, and I've sat through a few parliamentary groups on that and responded to a consultation paper. But the EU, for all its flaws, is that they're trying, and they're setting an interesting precedent. And the interesting dynamic here is the US approach of innovation coming ahead of regulation, whereas they argue the opposite for the EU. So it's an interesting time for the AI space and where the regulatory horizon is going.
Perfect. So maybe you can just help us to just understand as of now that's from the enterprise adoption, that's why deployment itself is such a big burden, and what are the you have your way to help to address that burden, but are there any other ways to help the enterprise to remove that burden of deployment?
Absolutely. I I think I will break it down in two parts: is where the burden comes from and how organizations are thinking about it. I think the number one burden that actually I see from enterprises is actually what I talk about, which is the data. So companies have not, a lot of those, well, at least a large portion of the ones that I'm speaking with, have not actually thought of, or like are super prepared, for this moment in AI, right? They haven't thought historically, for the last decade, how can we prepare, our data, for example, in a central location, in a data warehouse, or, how can we structure our data in the right way so that the models can understand? So organizations today are, have this kind of technical debt that is, very built up over decades. And, well, witnessed that, in my time at McKinsey, trying to process this data myself as well. But yeah, if it's in a form that's very unstructured and scattered across organizations, it's very difficult, to centralize that and produce output that the models can understand. I think the second challenge that organizations face is, they have kind of both this pressure from the board of directors to really accelerate with generative AI, right? Number one, but the second thing they're trying to face kind of internally is all this culture change, this upskilling, and also, finding the right use cases and doing this holistically. So they're not just, swatting at flies, one by one. How can they do this in a very holistic, transformation? It's kind of on the minds of executives. And kind of the other thing that's accelerating this is, in this moment, especially with the state of at least a lot of the U.S. companies that we're serving in the U.S. economy, every executive must do more with less, right? People, are not getting more headcount, but they're required to get more sales, and they must generate more pipeline, must ship product, faster. So that's another accelerant. So it's kind of a combination of things that are pushing and things that are kind of trying to kind of slow this down. That's kind of meeting kind of in this middle. I think ways kind of to accelerate this is, I think there was a lot of studies that we kind of did at my time at McKinsey where it's really how much of kind of your executive team kind of is really fluent and knowledgeable, about the going trends. A lot of kind of teams that I've seen kind of have appointed kind of one primary executive to be kind of the transformation leader, with generative AI. But it's not really just one, but it should be like your entire executive team that really kind of pushes this forward. And I think that is really the key indicator and the key predictor of how ready an organization is for generative AI.
Thank you. Yeah. And again, that's, I think your offer will just fill, quite a few gaps there. Now move to Ravi. That's interestingly, a lot of conversation around AI and Microsoft first come from OpenAI, but Microsoft offer a lot more than OpenAI, and especially for the capital market and fintech, where that's you focus on. That can you just give us a picture that what are the capability that you're offering to capital market fintech customers, and how do you help them to scale?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when people think about the generative AI, OpenAI is probably the de facto name that comes in. And, obviously the public announcements came in early this year in January, but the lot of work that has been put in for past 4 years in training those models and making it ready to the level of expertise that it has in the large language model space with GPT 3.5, 3.4, 4, and some of the latest and greatest different variations of the models. It has taken a lot of work behind the scene. So from that perspective, back to your question, that what else is offered in order to help enterprises scale, and specifically in the capital market space. those models are available in such a way in a cloud platform where it's as easy as extending those services, the PaaS services, and integrating it with your existing applications very seamlessly. So that's one key aspect where the large language models from OpenAI has been made available as a PaaS service. The integration is very, very seamless. It's same as integrating any API into your product. So that's number one. Number two is it's not just the OpenAI large language models. We have this platform which can bring in any large language model. So you must have heard about Llama 2, which is Meta's large language model. Then very recently, the Falcon large language model has been also brought in to provide that enterprise scale, enterprise grade capabilities in order to seamless leverage those large language models into your enterprise use cases. And then the other part of it is AI safety, which is very important, where it's not just the one company, one organization, but every part of the industry has to come together in order to define the AI safety, because the AI models are becoming powerful. It can become more intrusive and powerful and ubiquitous over the period. How do we put the right level of guardrails in the usage of the AI models? And that goes back to the regulatory compliance aspect as well. So building that framework, that toolkit, in collaboration with the industry is the other key aspect where, if any enterprise wants to build a large language model based solution and integrate that into their products, they should be able to do it safely. They should comply with the regular guardrails and risk mitigation patterns that are thought through in a toolkit. And then the third part of it is, how do we make it much easier for the developers, and not just the developers who know how to code, but the citizen developers where they don't probably know how to code, but they can do semi-coding, I would say. So for the citizen developers and the developers, providing that toolkit, which gives them the ability to very seamlessly build technology and solutions, and on top of the large language models at a cloud scale. This is the third capability that's available. And yeah, so these are some of the things that enterprises can use and scale at a faster pace. Many of the organizations are leveraging it in order to make great progress and compete with their competitors, take a competitive advantage by leveraging the large language models and generative AI and integrating their these capabilities into their products and services. So,
thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Roshan, I have a question for Ravi. Yeah, sorry, I have a question for Ravi. So, my question is actually twofold. I think, in the, great position you're in today, like, being a cloud provider, I think one of the questions that consumers of AI, consuming companies of AI would want to ask is which provider to start out working with, right? They're not going to be able to start out necessarily working with all three of the, hyperscalers. So on the same problem set, right? Most people want to take a stepwise approach, which makes sense, show some value, gain some productivity, gains, and then move on from there. I guess from your perspective, between the three major hyperscalers, like I do see some differentiation in strategy in terms of partnerships. So, for example, AWS, typically does not enter into strategic partnerships with, with most fintech companies from a, let's call it a consuming standpoint. GCP has been pretty aggressive about entering into partnerships. On the other hand, even investing lots of money into fintechs, as well as even some pretty large established players, at least in financial services. They invested $1 billion in CME about a year or two ago. And then Microsoft seems to be somewhat leaning in between from a partnership standpoint to, to being semi-neutral. And the reason that I think that could be important is that, I'll be honest, there's some hesitation among some companies to leverage a hyperscaler that's got a partnership already with a competitor? Let's put it that way, or a potential competitor.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's all up strategy. And there's no secret behind leveraging which model to scale faster. There are some industry measures and readings that have come out, which defines what's the best quality model that's available, and what's the cost of those models, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, there won't be a one platform. And, I think someone said that there's not going to be just one winner. There are different reasons why people want to leverage one platform versus the other. And I'm also seeing a large amount of, hybrid approach where, there's AWS cloud for IaaS capabilities, but when it comes to AI, people are leveraging the Azure OpenAI services and combining those two together. So the key is that, whether the data is available. I think if we, for a bit, if we become a platform agnostic and define the strategy around how to enable enterprises to scale faster and leverage the AI capabilities and the advancements that have happened, we can abstract that strategy and make it very, agnostic, cloud agnostic, or the platform agnostic. So from the strategy standpoint, that would be my answer at this point.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add to that.
Yeah, please.
So all the companies are good companies that you listed. The best one to work with is the one that meets your needs the best. But above all, the one thing that you need to do is be able to explain the model. So for industries such as healthcare and banking, which are highly regulated industries, you are accountable to your regulators, and you need to be able to explain what you're doing to the regulators, explain where the data is coming from, what you're doing with the data, and what this black box of a AI model is. So if you can't explain it, then that's not the company to go with. You need to be able to explain it. So it really comes down to what your needs are and the transparency that you can give to your regulators.
Yeah, the transparency, privacy, and all the AI safety measures are key to the the decision-making process for sure.
Yeah, I think to combine both of your answers, it basically is who help you the best, right? And you can choose anyone, but you may have a compliance requirement, you may have a performance requirement, you may have a time to market, you may have a deployment need. So all of them really just are part of your need in terms of I want this to happen, but I need to find the right partner to do that, and then who can really help you the best. And that's my first question to this time start from Albert. And so, for AI to be mainstreamed, what are the key factors or events need to happen to make AI to be mainstreamed?
I think the biggest thing, on the minds, of executives, is they need to be able to kind of visualize and see kind of successful use cases, both proved out, with pilots or, proof of concepts within the organization, and also kind of, across an organization, right? I think, for that to happen, obviously there's going to be a lot more development that's needed, both from a product standpoint, from a large language model standpoint, products for different specific use cases, and also from, the legal and regulatory, framework. And with the rising tide of all of this, a lot of executives are, we already covered, are asking themselves, what are the top priority use cases that we can cover? And I think it's, really winning kind of almost like a cultural battle within the organizations to, convince everyone to use this, that this is real, that this is, where the organization is heading, and they really need the champions, to have some successful use cases initially, and get the ball rolling. And once those successes start hitting, I think there would be kind of a rolling ball towards kind of mainstream adoption across entire enterprises and industries.
Perfect. Yeah, if I understand you correctly, and there are a couple of things which is essential. One is solve the right problem, and the other is success really inspire adoption, and third is to bring everyone together in your own organization. And those are the key things for you. And then same question to Tracy.
Sure. The first obstacle is the resistance to change. You have a lot of people that don't understand what AI is, and they're afraid for their jobs because they think a robot is going to come and replace them. So that's your first problem that you need to overcome, that cultural shift in education. But more broadly, recently, the World Economic Forum issued a survey of compliance officers, or actually compliance risk officers across the globe. And one of their top risks that they listed was artificial intelligence. And one of the reasons that they listed that as one of the top risks that they see is for a couple of reasons. Number one, the lack of comprehensive understanding of what AI is. So that goes right back to all of our comments about education, which will also impact the cultural shift. The second one is ethical and societal risks. There's no framework, and the risk officers acknowledge that. So again, it goes right back to having that framework, either self-regulation or the government regulating you. And then the third thing is understanding the long-term impacts of what artificial intelligence has on things like trading and investments in the banking industry. The risk officers are extremely concerned about what the implications are there as well. So these are the barriers and the discussions that need to be had.
Perfect. And what I think the message is so strong that you need to talk to the risk officer and then make sure that their need or their anxiety is being addressed, and then they will not block you from just making it happen. And I think that itself is, instead of looking outside of the organization, just asking your own risk officer, probably that's, you will gain a lot of insights. And Ravi.
Yeah, I will echo Anastasia's thought process and the structure that she mentioned, starting top down and defining the the business objectives, defining the risks, and this is a discussion which has to be happening at the board level, not even at the C-suite level. So defining that overall company's strategy, and it has to take into account every aspect, and building that overall holistic framework of how to go about leveraging the AI capabilities, because we will see lots of Fortune 500 companies will not exist in near future if they are not acting correctly. So taking the top-down approach, risk, compliance, AI safety, and also enabling the competitive advantage, leveraging the AI capabilities would be the starting point. And obviously the cultural change, the change management, these are some of the key challenges. Also, the education, the people who need to leverage the AI capabilities, they need to be trained. So the organizations have to put together the skilling plan, the education plan for every employee to plan for the future. Those are some of the aspects I would mention and highlight here.
Yeah, and again, I think that's just to dive a little bit deeper into within an organization. You need the leadership support. You need put right resources around it, including training, including communication, including even just providing security, potential security for your employee, and then they are with the security, they can really innovate, or they can be open to the change. I think all those are really critical. And what you said about the in the near future, that many of the Fortune 500 companies may not exist if they don't make the right decision now. I think that itself is very critical and for many companies to understand. And yeah, last but not least, Michael.
So I think regulatory engagement is one of the key pillars, and I think one thing that the EUA Act is certainly advocating is regulatory sandboxes. So regulatory sandboxes, for those of you who don't know, is where you effectively test your product and service before it goes to market. So they can go there, they can test their products, engage with the regulator, get them on board. I think a lot of companies, rather than just moving fast and break things, as Doug said, I think testing their products and getting them ready so they deal with all the issues as and when they arise and address them before they go out, or pre-deployment is the way to go. I think we've seen that with fintech. The sandboxes have been very effective, and I know the OECD released a paper on AI regulatory sandboxes over the past 2 months. So I think that's the way to go, and it's a mechanism which links to engaging regulators, and this is just an example of external stakeholders. But obviously, touching on Albert's point, it also requires internal alignment as well. So I think it is it should be part of the product deployment process. You know, in the same way you have before things go to market. I think a sandbox approach we're seeing it become more commonplace. But one thing that could help companies is the resources being made available, because obviously companies have to spend time and money testing their products. So I think a bit more financial support to give them more added incentive.
So this is a very exciting time for us to be in. There's a lot of dynamic changes that are happening, and I'm really excited about the future right now. But for sure, we need to be able to have the appropriate frameworks in place. We need to understand the difference between the legal implications and societal ones, or the ethical ones. The last question on the consciousness. Does it really need to be regulatory? Can we make that decision that that AI should not be sentient and conscious from an ethical framework? Does it really need to be regulatory? So these are the kind of things that we're going to be focusing on going forward, answers that we need to answer as we move into this space. But very exciting time.
Thank you. And Albert?
Absolutely. I think many things. I personally learned a lot, from the other, panelists, and from the questions and the discussion, that we had. I think a few key takeaways from myself were, definitely from Tracy's comments around, to have a really good structure, to implement kind of AI, to Michael's view on kind of regulation in Europe. It's not something I'm an expert on, and mainly based out of the US, and also. Definitely concur with what Ravi said with kind of the energy that a lot of enterprises also feel if they don't digitally transform over the next decade, they will be left behind. So definitely learned a lot today, and thank you everyone for coming and participating in this discussion.
Thank you, Michael.
I would just like to reiterate that we're on the journey together. It's not a static state, and once we've got through this, there'll be another challenge to overcome. But continuous learning and education, which my co-panelists obviously advocate, is key. And having these discussions, I think, especially with COVID, I think we underestimated the importance of human connectivity and speaking. And I think in a world which can increasingly become more technologically sophisticated, having conversations and just being honest and tackling these problems together becomes more important, whether it's regulation or commercial aspects. So let's keep the conversation going, guys, and we're here to help each other.
Perfect. And Ravi?
Yeah, I will echo everyone's thoughts, and I would say this, that the ecosystem approach is definitely what will advance this forward in the right way. So thinking about every aspect of the technology, as well as the implications of the technology on the society, on the enterprises, on the businesses, on the people. More importantly, it's essential. So, the collaborative approach in the industry and healthy competition bringing the ecosystem together in order to discuss the key aspects of everyone's learning and advancing everything in the right way in a collaborative fashion. I would say that's probably the approach going forward, which will lead to the best results. And with that, I will thank all of you guys for putting this together.
Thank you. Yeah, so I hope that, with the help of everyone who is here, including the speaker and everyone who are in this roundtable, that's, our joint message came across. And the reason why we launched the AI 2030 and also launched this roundtable is really with that thought, where that's AI adoption is at early stage and many questions yet to be asked and definitely not have been answered properly yet. So that's why, from AI 2030, that we want to put a longer view, longer version of, say, if we want AI to be adopted, properly, and then having a longer future. And I think, again, that this conversation is very important. I want to just also comment a little bit for the third question. When do you think AI will potentially develop the consciousness and start serving its own interest rather than solely serving humans? And for this, I think it's a very spread, and we have from it's not possible to not sure, and then it take more than 50 years. So obvious that everyone in the room share very different view for this question.
My opinion has changed as I blue screened as soon as that question was answered, and I'm back in online now.
Yeah, I think the reason why we have this question, the answer to this question is very different. It's some related to our personal belief and even personal hope. Other related to our reaction to what is happening, and then there might be hope, there might be frustration, there might be so there's a lot of things go into the answer to this question. Again, go back to the AI 2030. That's we want to just really bring the brilliant mind together to trying to ask the right question and also provide answer to some of those questions. So AI 2030 we have the three components. One is the AI 2030 Institute, and then the Institute really serve as bring the global thought leaders, industry practitioners together to ask and answer questions together through roundtable, through white paper, and through larger events like the AI conference I put together in Chicago on October 26th. And then AI Accelerator, which will focusing really on identifying who is developing solution and tools for responsible AI. For example, proof of do no harm, proof of benefits, and also help to train data or clean up the data, make sure that the data is from the beginning will not have bias and all that. All those are not only questions. These are the solutions the innovators can build, and we want to just using the accelerator, identifying who they are, what they are building, and what do they need to be successful. The third component is the AI 2030 Fund. The fund is really just say after the accelerator, just help to build or move them to the next phase, and then the fund will help them to move to the next step, and then to help potential scale. So those are the core component for AI 2030. Thank you for everyone who joined this, and I hope that we are going to see you next time on August 15th. Thank you again.